If anyone dares try to test my mental competence, I will eviscerate every single person with my intelligence right now. And that's not being egotistical.
The man planning to eviscerate anyone intellectually that you just saw speaking is Eric Van Conover, a YouTuber with almost 3 million subscribers, and he's most well known for his tours of very, very expensive homes all over the world. He is now most famous for hitting a police officer with his car, sending them between 20 and 40 feet from multiple different reports. And at first, when I had seen this news story, I was a bit perplexed because it's pretty out of the ordinary for someone to have as successful as a career as Eric, finding himself in legal trouble like attempted murder of a police officer. Well, I'd done some digging, some other YouTubers had made videos talking about this, and a lot of people were bringing up some information in regard to him getting off of medication or him being a bit weird over the last couple weeks, and everyone was mentioning it, but I couldn't find any proof of that. And I did some more digging, and after doing so, I've found some more information that's going to give us a bit of a better picture into what was happening over the last couple of days leading up to Eric doing what he did. I'm going to start you guys off by just giving a brief detailing of the police chase that had happened with Eric from this clip from WMUR.
Police paperwork says the pursuit started after Conover was going 55 in a 35. After 8 miles, Conover stopped and an officer attempted to de-escalate the situation, but Conover allegedly drove at him and hit him in the leg and then sped off for another 28 miles.
Our Father who art in heaven.
The paperwork says the officer was thrown 40 feet, suffering a leg injury. Conover is facing several charges, including attempted murder.
Mom, thank God, look at me!
Now already that's pretty bad, you know, just getting pulled over for what could probably just be a $150 ticket, something along those lines, and turning this into multiple felony charges that are gonna land him in prison for a good chunk of time. Or at the very least, it's looking like that has much more of a potential of happening now since he didn't just take the ticket. But if it really was just a YouTuber on their high horse just being a bit indignant and kind of just screwing themselves over, this wouldn't really be much of a video. But even in the small clips that have shown of Eric talking prior to his arraignment, this is all from that. We don't even have full access to it, but it's very clear that something's off. And I can't tell if it's a paranoia thing or something along those lines, but something is clearly wrong with Eric, or at least how he's perceiving the world, as he goes on to claim that the police arresting him were part of some like sting operation to get him since he's such a well-known famous figure.
Today in court, Conover was outspoken, claiming that he's a public figure because of his nearly 3 million subscribers on YouTube, and saying this was part of a, quote, police sting against him.
All right.
Okay, Eric.
All right.
They're here to help you.
The state asks that he remains in preventative detention. The defense asked that he be released, saying he's not a threat to the public and has no criminal record. Police say he was arrested Friday night for a separate drunk driving charge, which Conover denies.
Couple of things I want to go over from that clip right there. Number one, at the very end of that, you heard that he had received a drunk driving charge that he was arrested for. At least that's what the police are saying. Now, the first reason that that's a pretty notable thing that's going on is that a lot of Eric's image that he's talked about or showcased, at least in different forms of social media, this one being his Instagram, for example, is him talking about his sobriety.
1,444 days sober from alcohol today. Welcome to episode number 1 of my podcast, Building Legacy, episode 1. How I got sober.
His pinned video itself is even him talking about being 1,020 days sober. So it's been a big deal for him to maintain his sobriety, at least for his social image. So if we're just taking that at face value, him breaking his sobriety and getting arrested for drunk driving very recently seems a bit strange. And again, we're just taking that at face value. Maybe he's drank before that. Maybe the sobriety that he's claiming is a lie, but let's just take that at face value. Clearly something has recently changed with Eric and he's now seeming to act out. I mean, obviously going after a police officer in his vehicle, as well as, you know, the police claiming that he was arrested for drunk driving. Well, people had been noticing that through Instagram stories, things like that, Eric has been showing that he's been doing things a little different, a little strange. For example, he had posted this on one of his stories that someone was able to screen grab, him saying Elon has been lining his pockets with government contracts under the guise of patriotic change. And he took a picture of this upset clear poster talking about, you know, disgust for Tesla. And someone had to say it, the real estate YouTuber. And so maybe, he's getting a little political, a bit strange, but this isn't crazy. People are political. It's this day and age in the United States. It's gonna happen. But then we also got this photo, which I believe was also taken from an Instagram story. And he had posted this saying, yeah, the pharmaceutical industry tried to gaslight me that I needed medication too, when all you need is some discipline of your emotional state. And sure, maybe that does have a degree of truth, I have ADHD, I have ADHD medication I take. And for me, being able to build habits, things like that, that actually does help me with having ADHD. It doesn't all have to be medication. And hopefully, at some point, I won't be on meds anymore. But that's not true with every medication. Specifically, on the photo that he had shared, I went ahead and zoomed in and saw that it said something like olanzapine, something like that. So I did some searching olanzapine, trying to find it, and I found something that seemed to match up with the name on the bottle, olanzapine. It's an antipsychotic that can treat schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. It balances the levels of dopamine and serotonin in your brain. Now, when it comes to something like bipolar, which is known as these rapid mood shifts between, full-on depression and these bouts of grandeur manic episodes, to say for those kind of mental illnesses that you can, avoid the medication you need to take with some mental fortitude and discipline is quite a bit of a stretch. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but it is a bit of a stretch. I just did a quick Google search of olanzapine withdrawal if you were to just kind of stop at cold turkey. The common symptoms of olanzapine withdrawal include nausea, headaches, dizziness, sleep disturbances, but more importantly, brain zaps and psychological symptoms such as anxiety, irritability, mood swings, and difficulty concentrating. Nearly half the people describe these symptoms as severe, especially during the early stage of withdrawal. And the experience of these symptoms can vary in length of time based on how long you've been taking it. It can last 2 weeks or less, or sometimes for years. It correlates seemingly to the length of time people had taken the medication. Now, there's no way that I don't think anybody else can tell how long Eric has been taking that medication before he seemed to have stopped. And also, we don't know if he just stopped it cold turkey. I'm just making assumptions here based on his behavior leading up to this incident, as well as the incident itself. It kind of follows in line with someone who is taking a medication like this for either bipolar or schizophrenia. It makes sense that the emotional duress that he's in, as well as when he's talking before his arraignment, that kind of lines up with what you would expect from someone going through withdrawal like this, or from someone just suffering from those illnesses untreated. Specifically, this idea that there was a group of people like the police setting up a sting kind of operation against him since he's a well-known, famous YouTuber. Again, not a doctor, just kind of going off what I'm seeing here. But it wasn't just, these specific posts on social media, like with him cutting the medication or the picture with the Tesla stuff. He also seemed to be confronting people out in public. I was jumping around on links based on articles that I had seen talking about Eric, and I was able to find this one, where someone said discredited and attacked for posting about harassment from UWS resident and influencer. They go on to say, almost a week ago, I posted here to share an experience getting threatened and stalked on Riverside by a big guy in a brown suit. Here's a link to that, which we'll take a look at. The guy in the suit was identified by some as the famous YouTuber and UWS resident Eric Von Conover. And he talks about how he was called a liar because he had a Doge profile picture, yada yada. But let's get into the original post. Keep in mind, this was about a week before he got into that scuffle with the police and was arrested for it. Big guy in brown suit stalking Riverside this AM. Had a weird experience with a deranged guy in a brown suit stalking Riverside looking to fight. Notice this guy at 10:30 AM strolling down Riverside Drive slowly, full double-breasted brown suit. Watched as he approached some middle-aged guy who was training his dog. Brown suit then started threatening the dog owner for speaking harshly to the dog and approached as if to fight. I saw this and said, hey, do you want me to call the police? Because this guy seemed dangerous. The brown suit then turned on me and started threatening me, calling me a cuck, lol, and a coward liberal. Not sure where he got that idea. Nobody said anything political. And using a lot of that sort of language. He was walking toward me aggressively, and I had the sense this was going to turn physical. I tried to walk away, and he followed me for about 15 minutes, shouting insults and walking faster and faster and closing the distance between us. I called 911 at that point because the guy was huge and I felt extremely threatened. He wouldn't stop following. When he realized I was on the phone with the police, he sat down on a bench and stared at me, calling me a coward, and I was able to walk away. I left him at 108th and Riverside. I've never had an experience like that up here, weird times. And this was a picture that he took of what looks to be Eric Conover. He's standing like a toy action figure, which some other people found a bit bizarre. But again, this kind of irrational behavior and being a bit strange, at the very least, in comparison to how he portrayed himself online, which is not the best litmus test for how someone's doing off scene. He didn't seem to be a kind of guy that was into doing this. He was just showcasing really cool houses. And now we have this chain of events from him, stopping taking his medication, seeming to showcase more of his political opinions on his Instagram. Maybe that was happening beforehand. I didn't follow the guy. And then leading up to, him kind of harassing people on the street in his suit and yelling at people, calling people cucks and things like that. And then we lead down to him getting arrested for driving into a police officer and sending them flying. Even before that, getting arrested for a DUI just earlier that week. Putting all of these events together, it truly does look like Eric wanted to stop taking his medication, did so, and then started suffering either withdrawals from the medication that he had been taking, or was starting to experience the symptoms of the illness he was treating with that medication. I, of course, have empathy for someone that I see seems to be out of touch with reality, but at the same time, I think my biggest issue is that he was drunk driving. I mean, no matter how much of what you're going through has to do with a mental illness that you were dealing with medication that you stopped. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think about the rest of what I've shown you and what your thoughts are about his actions recently. But as it stands right now, I was able to find a YouTube channel and they list that the charges that he is facing right now are attempted murder, first-degree assault against a police officer, second-degree assault, reckless conduct with a deadly weapon, disobeying an officer, and reckless driving. This man turned a ticket into a potentially multi-year prison sentence. So, that's not great. But again, interested to hear what you guys think. Did you know this guy before this video? Did you watch his stuff? I watched a few of them. They're pretty informational, a little documentary-esque. But yeah, that's it for the video today. I'll see you guys later. Adios, peace, bye, see ya.